Welcome CSC 230, 235, 200, 115, or any other class that uses a code editor. And this could be an editor for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Python, PHP, or any other programming language. And I'm looking at the web page to download Atom, ATOM, which is a code editor. This would be the equivalent of brackets that we've been using in our courses. And I tried out Atom a little bit, and I really like it. And it's not a whole lot different than brackets, but if you want to try something new, you don't have to, but I just wanted to show you some things with Atom so you're familiar with it on what to do. I'm still learning about it a little bit, so I just want to point out that it's very easy to download. It's cross-platform, so they have it for Mac and Windows and Linux and all that. And it's very extensible, so you can add things to it that don't exist. And I'll show you what I mean. I already have it installed, so I'm not going to install it, but you can download it and just drag it into your applications for Mac. I haven't done it on Windows yet, but I'm sure it's just as easy to run, to install on Windows. And I'm just going to launch it here. This is where you go to. It's atom.io, just like brackets.io. And this is open source, so a lot of people contribute to this. And atom.io is the name of the website. And I'm just going to launch it. I have it down here, and this is what I like about it already. It's got a cool icon. Look at that little green thing with the little atom thing on it. It's much cooler than the brackets. And here it is. And here's kind of like the welcome window. It has a welcome guide. Has Untitled, it has a welcome here. Now what these are, telemetry consent. This is if you want to help improve Atom. I'll close that up right now. There's a welcome, which has some docs and different places to go, discussion forums, anything you want to know about Atom, you could find out about it. I'll close that up. There's an Untitled window right now, which there's nothing there, so I'll close that up too. And here's the welcome, and I want to point this out because some things are a little hard to find as you get used to it, but they have open a project. And in brackets, when we open a folder, we can open projects. We're going to call them projects in here. And what's nice about Atom is you can open multiple projects in here at a time. So if you're working on something, I'll just show you, for example, if I go File, Add Project folder, and let's say we're working in for the CSC 200 class, or you're working in WordPress, or anything where you're working on with MAMP through a server, where you need server access and you need to host your files and folders in the htdocs folder from MAMP. You could use that one, and that could be one project folder. And here's exercises for our CSC 200 class that are in the htdocs folder. And then also, if let's say I'm also in CSC 230, where we're working on, we have an upload folder for our website there. You can add a project folder, and I could go into and find my CSC 230 folder, and here it is, and it's my upload instructor. That's what I use in there. So there, I could have multiple folders in here that I could use. You can't do this in brackets, but what you can do here is, if you wanted to, you can have a new window. And you can have a window where you're just working in, now, and I'd have to go through all these different tabs again, but I could have one window where maybe I'm working with my upload instructor project, and another window where I'm working in my htdocs. And that way I don't have to keep these all together. So it gives you some flexibility here as far as working. So right now I'll just keep these together. I could close up one, so if I'm working in htdocs, I could do that. If I'm working in my CSC 230. So if you have multiple classes, you could keep these things together and have multiple projects open. Now this welcome guide, they have a couple, and they have terminology here that you might not be familiar with, but project is the one I mentioned. Those are just the folders that we're working in. There's also these things, packages, but before I get to packages, I'll mention themes, because they have open the theme picker here. And all this stuff, just so you know, when you go up to the window here, they have packages, and you'll find a lot of this stuff here. They have settings view, they have this, they kind of have it stuck in the middle. It's not the easiest place to find, because when you go to, you think, oh, settings, I'll go to file settings or preferences. It's actually right in the middle here, and that's where they have all this kind of stuff. So we're going to want to open up our settings, but you know, we can start here. They have the theme picker, and if I click on that, it basically, you can see what it did. It opened settings. So if I went to packages and I went to settings view, open, it's exactly what it would do. It would open this, and you could go here. They have all these things over here: the editor, packages, and themes. Themes is, I'm going to be working with when working in CodePen, I like the black background. So one of the themes in here that I like, they have a couple built in, and you could always add more. But I'm going to work with the Atom Dark, and they have the UI theme was the looks of it, and then they also have the syntax of the way all the text is colored and things like that. And you could change some of that, but I'm just going to leave it on Atom Dark. And one thing I want to point out, and you might not know, and I had to search this out, But they have a style sheet here for your theme that you're working in. You might think, well, why do I got to worry about the style sheet? And I guess I'll show you. Let me just go over here and just open. I'll just open a file. Here's an HTML file, and obviously all these colors are kind of different. But if you notice when I highlight, that's a custom color I use because I didn't like the dark gray color. Sometimes it was very hard to see when I'm highlighting things. But I customized that color, and the way to do that is under settings, and I had to look this up, but they have a style sheet here, and you could see down here I have something called Atom Text Editor Shadow Selection Region Background Color. Now you might not know that, and you wouldn't think. Now this was not here by default. When you install it, this wasn't here. So I had to copy and paste this in. I found it on a discussion site for Atom, but I'll post that somewhere so if you need it. And that way what you can do is you could choose another color here, and all that you have to do is just kind of right click on it and go to Color Picker, and then kind of choose a different color if you want. And I'll just show you, for example, I'll highlight over this RGB color that's here, and I'll right click and I'll go to Color Picker, and just for the heck of it, I'll just choose a different color. I'll use like a blue color, and I'll just kind of hit enter when I'm done. And then if I close this styles.less, that's a type of CSS, I'll close this up and hit save. And now when I go back to my file that I was working here, you can see when I highlight, now I'm using a blue color. Now I like kind of the reddish color because it's a little different because there's a lot of cool colors in here anyway. So I'll go back and do that. Now again, it's under the style sheet and it's at the bottom. And again, this text, this CSS style will not be there. You'll have to copy and paste it in here. But I'll post it, and you could find, or I'll put a link even where you could find it online. But let me highlight this, and you can see if it's even hard to see the blue one there. And I'll right click and I'll go to Color Picker, and I'll go back to that kind of grayish kind of burgundy color I had for now. And you could always change that, but I kind of like that. It was a little easier to pick up. And again, I'll close this, I'll save it, and then when I go back here and I highlight, then it's kind of in that color. Now that might be a little too light, but I could always change that. So that's the highlight color. And I noticed in CodePen I had a hard time with picking up the color, especially when I'm recording videos. So anyway, that's under settings, that's the style sheet, that's the theme. They also have all these packages. Now, what kind of packages would you want? Well, there's two I installed already on here. One is called Color Picker because they didn't have a color picker here. And installing packages is really easy. You just go search for packages, and you could even go through here. You could go to packages under settings. You could say install packages, and then you just search packages, and if you just find Color Picker, you'll just kind of click on it and you'll be able to install it, and it works pretty easy. And Color Picker, you just right click on it. So anyway, I'll go back to my packages here. So I already have Color Picker installed. You can see it says disable, and I can uninstall it, and they have settings here, but Color Picker is the one I use. There's another one, because one thing it doesn't have by default that Brackets has is that little arrow thing in Brackets that opens it up in a browser. And they have an extension, I call it an extension, but it's a package called Open in Browser. And if you just search for Open in Browser and install it, it works pretty easy. And the way to open something in a browser, I'll just go back to this page here. If I wanted to open this in browser, I would just go to Packages, and I would, with a package, here's Open in Browser. It's in this list, so I could go to Open in Browser, and it should open it up in a browser. Okay, I just realized why it was not opening the file in a browser. It's because it was a PHP file. I didn't even realize this was a PHP file here, and it didn't know where to open a PHP file, because remember, a PHP file needs a PHP interpreter. It needs to be on a server, so it was opening up in brackets. It wasn't opening up in a browser. So if I use an HTML file, and I could right-click, or I could do Open in Browser. I could even like right-click on here and do Open in Browser, and it should open up in a browser. And here's a SpongeBob character database thing that we're doing in our CSC 200 class. So anyway, just make sure it's not a PHP file to open up in a browser. We can still view them in browsers, but it just won't use that it won't natively open it up in a browser. So that's a nice feature that we have in here, that preview in a browser, just to make sure it's HTML. So that was one of the packages that we have in here. So that was the packages. So those are the only two, and you could go, if there's something else that you need, you could search more. But I just wanted to point that out, and I'll go back to my index, and you can see here's my dark background that I'm working in here, and you can change some of these things, but I'll get used to it as I start working into it. But again, the things I like about this, I like that you could have multiple packages or folders open, as you work in here. And it does have a color picker. You can, whenever you need color, you could right click on it and do the color picker, and it does have an open in browser. So at any point I could just right click and say open in browser. There it is down there. And it could open up the file I'm working on in a browser. So I like it so far. So, it's pretty even with brackets, but I'm going to give it a try since it works with Python and some other things that I've been working with. So I'm going to start with that. Hopefully on screen when I do videos, it won't bother you. Now, if you're comfortable with brackets, you don't have to change. I just want to point out that it is cross-platform, and it does have a cool logo down here. And I like it so far. So you might want to try it out. You don't have to, but if you want to try it out, it's atom.io.